All right, everybody, it is 1 minute after 10 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started, and I'm sure we'll have some more people hopping on as we go through the event today. But good morning to all you out there. I appreciate everybody joining us today. My name is Josh Schneiker. I'm Director of Economic Development for the City of Seguin and Executive Director of the Seguin Economic Development Corporation. I'd like to welcome everybody to our first ever legislative update event. When we were originally thinking about this event, I believe we were planning this well in advance of COVID and had full intentions to have something in person. But with COVID still around and precautions in place, we decided to proceed with a virtual event. But we're hoping that as we go through the legislative session and get closer to the end, we can reconvene in maybe some sort of an in-person format to provide an update on where bills are that we're tracking and provide an update on legislation that has been moved forward and approved by our state legislature. So we're right now in the middle of the 87th Texas legislative session, and we're really honored today to have some pre-recorded videos from our state senator, Judith Zaffirini, our state representative, Mr. John Kemple. In addition to that, we have from the Texas Association of Manufacturers, Mr. Tony Bennett, Adriana Cruz, who is with the Office of the Governor, Greg Abbott, and his Economic Development team. And then to close us out today, we have Aaron Demerson with Texas Workforce Commission, Commissioner for the employers here in the state of Texas. So each one of these individuals is going to be providing a brief legislative update, and then we will wrap today's event up at the end with some Q&A. We'll have, I believe, State Senator Judith Zaffirini, who's already on with us this morning. We'll have some other members joining us as well. But as you go through the video, make sure to jot down any questions you might have. And again, we thank you so much for being here today. So we're going to turn it over to the video. Ashlyn, I'll let you share your screen and get started with that. Thank you, everybody.
Senator Judith Zaffirini represents the 21st Senatorial District, which stretches from the Rio Grande to the Colorado River and to the Port of Corpus Christi and the Valley. Re-elected in 2016, she is the first Hispanic woman elected to the Texas Senate, the second highest ranking senator, and the highest ranking woman and Hispanic senator. As Senate Chair of the Eagle Ford-Shell Legislative Caucus, Senator Zaffirini prioritizes the district's continued prosperity and is Vice Chair of the Natural Resources and Economic Development Committee and member of the Energy Council since 2009. She promotes responsible, sustainable development of Texas energy resources. Thank you, Senator, for joining us this morning.
Hello, I'm Judith Zaffirini, State Senator for District 21, which includes part of Guadalupe County and the city of Seguin. Thank you to the Seguin Economic Development Corporation for inviting me to join you today. I'm delighted to provide a legislative update as we approach the midpoint of this year's legislative session. The great industrialist Henry Ford said so long ago, "If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got." Such wisdom is the hallmark of every great business. Those who innovate and adapt to changing circumstances thrive, while those who don't get left behind. In Spanish, we would say, "Quien adelante no mira, atrás se queda." In this year of turmoil, a global pandemic and economic crisis followed by a winter storm and electric grid failure, it's clear that our government is no different. We need to modernize and innovate to keep Texans safe, healthy, and prosperous. Put another way, we need 21st century governance to deal with 21st century problems. Despite everything that has happened in the last few weeks, the pandemic must remain our highest priority. For the first time in months, we have some hope. More and more vaccines are on the way, and Congress has passed a stimulus bill that will help struggling Americans and businesses cope through the end of this crisis. Thank God. Having worked remotely most of the last year, I certainly look forward to returning to normal, and I hope that means visiting Seguin again sooner rather than later. Defeating the pandemic will bring us back to normal and get Texans back to work, but that's not enough. We need to act upon the things we've learned this year, or to paraphrase Henry Ford, we'll always get what we've always got. First, and always my highest legislative priority, is education. I'm confident that parents who involuntarily became homeschoolers during the last year have a whole new level of appreciation for the work our teachers do every day. We've also seen the importance of in-person teaching, not only for our children's academic growth, but also for their mental well-being. The legislature's support for public education is essential. Thankfully, what we've seen is a broad bipartisan commitment to maintaining the important investments we made last session by passing House Bill 3, which included pay raise for teachers, pre-K expansion, and property tax relief, among other important provisions. Count me among those, however, who believe that we should strive to do much, much more for our students. That's why, for example, I filed Senate Bill 37, which would expand full-day, high-quality pre-K to all 4-year-olds and to qualifying 3-year-olds. Research overwhelmingly indicates that the best investment we can make is in early childhood education. Ensuring our children get a strong start in school helps them stay on track, obtain a higher education, and get a good-paying job. Clearly, effective early childhood education is the best predictor of higher education success. On a related note, the pandemic has revealed the importance of access to broadband internet for every Texas family. During a pandemic or not, our lives, businesses, and most important, our children's educations have become increasingly digital. Those who lack access to high-speed internet, especially in rural or in low-income communities, risk being left behind, a fact that was exacerbated during the pandemic. Recognizing that the market alone cannot solve this problem, I co-authored Senate Bill 5 with Senator Robert Nichols, which would establish a statewide broadband development office charged with developing a state broadband plan, identifying high-need areas, and facilitating and supporting investment in broadband in those areas. This would be a very important step in securing federal funding and working toward closing the digital divide. Finally, we must expand the use of telemedicine and telepsychiatry, especially in communities that don't have enough doctors or enough counselors. Senators and representatives have filed dozens of proposals, and I look forward to collaborating with my colleagues to chart a sensible course forward and to make the best use of these budding technologies. Accordingly, I filed Senate Bill 40, which would authorize telehealth services for occupations overseen by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, which includes athletic trainers, audiologists, behavior analysts, dietitians, dyslexia therapists, podiatrists, and speech-language pathologists, among others. These are the types of services that many more Texans could benefit from if they were more widely available. As you get farther from large cities, however, providers become scarce. Leveraging telehealth for these professions would be enormously beneficial, even after the pandemic. I wonder how many children go without proper treatment for dyslexia or special disabilities, for example, because the nearest provider is hours away. Senate Bill 40 could be life-changing for them. And then, of course, there was the winter storm. There's no nice way to put this. The related suffering was a man-made disaster and a comprehensive, lethal failure, and we need to ensure this never happens again. We've held numerous investigative hearings during the last few weeks, but many decisions remain to be made, including changes to the structure, governance, and independence of the Public Utility Commission and ERCOT, weatherization protocols for generators and utilities, and the future of the Texas grid itself. Our investigation must be as thorough as it is systematic, examining every aspect, including, in my opinion, whether Texas should be part of a national grid instead of continuing membership in ERCOT. That is why I filed Senate Bill 845, which would require the PUC to create and enforce meaningful weatherization standards for generators and utilities, and Senate Bill 857, which would allow for greater accountability by making PUC commissioners statewide elected officials similar to those on the Railroad Commission. Although so far I've focused on the crisis we face, much more is happening at the Capitol. We are developing a budget amid an approximately $1 billion deficit, some of which may be offset by the stimulus bill that President Biden signed last Thursday. I remain committed to protecting funding for education, higher education, and healthcare, especially because I believe cuts to these would cause greater long-term consequences than anything we currently face. My own legislative priorities have not changed. I have now filed more than 150 bills this session, which would support our public schools and teachers, promote access, affordability, and excellence in higher education, create jobs and develop our infrastructure, aid small businesses threatened by the pandemic, expand access to healthcare, especially for the very young, the very old, the very poor, persons with disabilities, and veterans, promote government transparency, and enhance access to justice for all Texans. During this session, redistricting, will be postponed probably to a special session because we won't receive the census data before September. It's my pleasure to represent your city and your county with my dear friends, Representative John Kemble and Senator Donna Campbell. I would, however, appreciate knowing your preferences for the future. Would you rather, for example, unite in one Senate district? If so, in which one? I will support your preferences and not take them personally if you prefer to be in Senator Campbell's district. We both try to do our best for you. Our work is improved with your insight and your collaboration, so count on my staff and me to continue our open door policy, or at least our virtual open door policy, and to continue to be accessible to you. For your convenience, we will provide a list of my staff members with their contact information and issue area expertise. Feel free to contact us whenever we may be of assistance. I also encourage you to subscribe to my e-newsletter and to follow my page, Judah Saffirini, Texas State Senator, on Facebook, on which I post daily updates about the pandemic, legislation, and of course, my darling grandsons, Asher and George. Thank you again for this opportunity to join you today and to represent you in the Texas Senate. Working together, I know we can overcome the challenges of stagnation envisioned by Henry Ford and instead live up to the optimistic words of Robert Browning. The best is yet to be. My prayer is that the Lord will bless you always, protect you from harm, and inspire you to continue to excel. Thank you so much.
Representative John Kemble is serving his fourth term as state representative from District 44. The district includes both Guadalupe and Wilson County. John received a bachelor's degree from the University of Texas at Austin. He was born and raised in Seguin and graduated from Seguin High School and is very actively involved in his community. He is a member of the Seguin Rotary Club, the Guadalupe County 100 Club, Texas Farm Bureau, and Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association. Thank you for joining us, Representative Kemble.
Thank y'all for having me today. This is State Representative John Kemble from House District 44, which is Guadalupe and Wilson counties in their entirety. Some of the issues we'd like to visit with today, or like to discuss today, be, obviously manufacturing. So y'all are well aware, I've been employed by Commercial Metals for 27 years and get it for the easiest way to say. But with the state of Texas right now, we're in, we started legislative session about 2 months ago. And with that, with the craziest year that we've ever seen, I was really worried that we're going to have a budget shortfall that maybe got to $20 billion. A couple months ago, the comptroller said it would only be about $1 billion. And just the other day, with the federal relief, we're in the black. So that works well. So anything that goes in the development fund, is going to be there, and we continue to grow and add on if we need to. Some of the other things, I mean, everybody's interested in ERCOT and the PUC right now, and I could just simply tell you that's in the infancy of what we may or may not do with those state agencies going forward. I think it's been public that, you know, all the ERCOT directors resign. We've had 2 PUC directors resign. So that the committees responsible for that are still working on that, and we're, you know, it's a mess to sort out, to say the least. And that's the easiest way to put it. The easiest way to put it. Other than that, you know, Texas remains strong. Texas remains very strong, and you have a firm supporter in manufacturing and anything that we might do to promote the manufacturing in Guadalupe County, Wilson County, because we are, relative to the rest of the state, the manufacturing capital of the state of Texas. So I've got keen interest on that. We continue to look at that. But other than that, look, like I said, we're still kind of in the infancy of session right now, and it's been as odd as anyone I've ever seen. It's slow, meticulous, and there are just not any people around because of COVID. But we're still up here working. Committees are meeting, and getting things done for y'all and y'all's interests. So, you know, at the very least, our door is always wide open. Y'all may hear something that, don't assume that I will. Doors wide open. Feel free to call. Come find me, and we'll talk about it and see what we can't get done. But I wish y'all all the best. Hang in there, and we too shall get through all of this. Thank you.
Tony Bennett is president and CEO of the Texas Association of Manufacturers, also known as TAM, an Austin-based industry trade association representing over 600 member companies, including more than 70 of the state's largest industry employers. In 2005, Mr. Bennett was the founding chairman of the Texas Association of Manufacturers, reviving the trade group after a more than 30-year hiatus. Thanks for joining us, Tony.
It's great to be with you today, and there's a lot going on here at the Texas Capitol in Austin. A few surprises this session. I'm sure everybody's heard about, if not felt, the winter storm that we went through, which is adding to the controlled chaos here at the Texas Capitol, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And I've got a slide deck for you that we'll use as a guide through this conversation. So I'll get that up and get that going here. I think this is going to be it right here. And hopefully everybody can see that. So the legislative priorities for a competitive manufacturing economy, as everybody on this Zoom call can guess, requires a whole lot of components to have a successful manufacturing industry, and a program like the Seguin Economic Development Corporation strives for. And so all of these factors that are needed by each of our industry sectors, and TAM has about 24 major industry sectors that we work for. And that would be everything from aerospace, automotive, pulp and paper, petrochemical, oil and gas, you name it, semiconductors, technology, electronics, the list goes on. So, you know, some have common issues that we deal with at the Capitol. Others have very specific issues that we also try to deal with. The pharmaceutical industry may have issues that no other sector deals with. So that sort of thing. So we'll give you a taste of what's going on, and hopefully I can move this. There we go. Move this slide. So the priorities TAM has a lot of priorities. I picked some of the more high priority issues to discuss this afternoon. You know that Chapter 313 tax abatement renewal is something that is absolutely a must-pass piece of legislation this session, and we're going to be working very, very hard on that and have for the last 2 years. We passed Chapter 312, city and county tax abatement, 2 years ago. Chapter 313, of course, deals with school tax abatement. So a lot more on that shortly. I'll probably spend most of our time talking about that because it's such a critical element as far as attracting quality manufacturing to the state. Pandemic liability protection is extremely critical with the COVID crisis that hopefully we're coming to a close with. Everybody knows that the U.S. Senate has been dealing with this, trying to get some pandemic liability relief. Washington is so polarized, they really can't get a whole lot agreed upon. And so we're not going to wait for Washington to do something about that. Texas simply cannot afford to wait for a federal solution. It may never arrive, quite frankly. So we need to pass some measure of protection against a battery of frivolous personal injury lawsuits that might be thrust upon our businesses and our industries. And so we've got bills in the House and the Senate that are being filed that will go through committee shortly to deal with that. Workforce education and skills funding, we've told leadership it is absolutely essential not to cut the funding for workforce education in any form, whether it's higher ed, we need engineers, whether it's, the most sought after skills, welders, electrical experts at all levels, plumbers, you name it, all of the trades, we need those men and women trained up and ready. We have got the JET fund for the kids in high school and college, community colleges that fund a lot of the training hardware that goes into the schools, as well as the teaching element, just all of those things. And we've told leadership, we know it's going to be a tight budget, but please do not cut something that has a high rate of return like workforce education and skills. You'll get your money back and then some, we believe. We also are watching the entire state budget, more particularly how it impacts our regulatory agencies, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, where all of our permits come from, where all of the inspections of the plants come from. Those people need to be paid right so we don't lose competent people. We need our permits quickly. A slow permit is a massive expense on industry. Permits take anywhere from 9 months to, in some cases, up to 2 years to get. That is money down the drain for the state of Texas. It slows down payrolls, slows down construction. So the Railroad Commission, another area that needs good staff and plenty of folks. The Public Utility Commission, obviously they're going to be very busy replacing some staff there for, you've seen the media accounts of what's going on there. So all of this must be expedient and, for our industries to run efficiently and to run on time. Also, regulatory improvements for a more reliable and affordable Texas electric grid. I mentioned that. You're going to see dozens of bills that will deal with cleaning up the mess from the mid-February winter storm. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and let's talk about, for just the 10 or 15 minutes that we have, Chapter 313, since that's so very important. Our peer industry associations that deal the most with Chapter 313, and we have all the chambers of commerce. There's too many logos to put on the screen, but the Chemical Council is very involved with us, the Oil and Gas Association, of course, all of our manufacturers, and the Texas Taxpayers and Research Association. They do a lot of the technical expertise on writing and formulating policy on taxation, how it compares to the other 49 states and to other countries, particularly in North America. So we have a lot of help with this. So the current elements of today's Chapter 313, if you have a project above 10 million to 50 million, depending on what county you're in and how wealthy the school districts are per child, that determines your level of investment that qualifies. And the exemption, the tax exemption, pretty much 100% comes from the maintenance and operation portion of the school tax rate. A school tax rate has got two parts. 80%, 75 to 80% of it is M&O, maintenance and operation. And then the debt service, how they finance their school buildings and other long-term debt, that is considered the INS, interest and sinking debt service portion of the tax rate. And that's, runs around 25%. The INS portion, you cannot abate. The industry that is asking for the 313 tax abatement must pay those taxes. So this is different immediately from 312. 312, pretty much everything gets abated for up to 10 years. 313, everything could be abated on the M&O portion of the tax rate, but not on the INS. So the school district, in other words, gets money from the project, the industry project, like a Tesla or, some other a qualifying 313 entity that has asked for abatement. They'll get money immediately. They must create at least 10 to 25 new jobs. Tesla has said that they're going to create, for example, 5,000 jobs. And, there's some audits and that sort of thing that happen every year to ensure that all of that actually happens. The Texas State Comptroller takes care of those sorts of things. The schools customarily demand that most projects share in the tax savings through what are called supplemental payments. Those would consist of pilot payments, that stands for payments in lieu of tax, and they're really almost voluntary payments that the industry agrees to, so much per child in the ISD to kind of, give them some extra money and provide things, financial things for the school district while the abatement is underway. And then the revenue protection payments are a little bit more complicated. If the state legislature changes something that makes the school district pay more money in subsequent years during the abatement, the industry agrees to pay all or part of that, makes up for that loss. And that could be quite a lot of money, and that is being looked at as whether or not, that is something that industry wants to continue agreeing to, because some of those payments can be in the millions of dollars. Chapter 313 makes money for the state by attracting new taxpayers and new value to the local tax rolls. So who is currently eligible today? Manufacturing, of course, renewable energy, certain other clean energy projects, R&D, nuclear projects, data centers that are related to a major project like an automotive plant that has a data center. A standalone data center has very little to no employees and not a great deal of investment relatively speaking. You don't see data centers getting 313 very often. And then the Texas priority projects, which are major projects in excess of $1 billion in investment. So what's broken? Today's 313 is fraught with a lot of administrative costs. When you compare it to other states, for example, our application, I've been told, is 90 to 100 pages long. You go to Louisiana or Oklahoma or some of the other neighboring states, it's 10% of that. It is very onerous to file it. It's almost like we're acting like we don't want people to come to Texas. And I may be overstating that a little bit, but it could be a much simpler process. And I used to do tax abatement in multiple states around the country, and it is significantly more onerous in Texas, and we need to fix that. We don't want to run off folks that want to come here, that want to bring quality jobs and all the benefits that come with that. It is so onerous and so expensive, and the school tax consultants have made it a little bit more difficult for us. We are now averaging around 35 to 40% tax savings when you look at Louisiana, where they're averaging anywhere from 75 to 80% tax savings to attract these big projects. Now, we don't want to take all the schools' money. I'm not saying that, but we have to be globally competitive when a company like Tesla, I keep using them, but it's just the latest example, comes to any community in the state and starts asking about tax incentives. This is part of, do you have a workforce that is skilled and talented? Do you have, the proper infrastructure? Do you have the proper tax policy and tort reform policies? All the things that make up, for a good location to build, a project. So we also in Texas do not provide any tax abatement for industrial facilities that want to expand or renovate, bring themselves up to date. Some of our plants in Texas were built in the 50s and 60s. They need to be retrofitted to be modern, advanced manufacturing entities. We need to have a program for those. Other states have that. Again, Louisiana has a renovation, expansion, tax abatement, industrial district exemption, I believe is what it's still called, and it goes for another 10 years. So these are things that, are very important. So, right here, the net benefits of 313, using just an example, you can see that a project with no 313 tax abatement would pay almost $13 million in total taxes. And then today, a project with a 313 abatement still pays about $8 million. So you can see that the net discount is only 37%. In Louisiana, the project with a 313 abatement there would be significantly less, probably around 2 to 3 million instead of the 7.9 million. And so we're out of line with other states, and we need to do something about that. So what's the solution? I think we've mentioned several things here. We got to simplify the application and the reporting requirements. We have to reduce the costly fees. Even the application fee has been 6 figures with some school districts, which is completely out of line and ridiculous. And in the legislation that we're supporting, the application fee is a flat standard $50,000. Should take care of all the econometric studies and the staff time, and it is paid to the state comptroller, who does most of the analysis. Their staff does that. We need to enhance program benefits to be competitive with other states. We've talked about that. And we need to allow for modernization, renovation, so that we can continue to keep our industries, advanced manufacturing industries. And keep in mind, according to the National Association of Manufacturers, each manufacturing job that we can create or retain supports an average of 5 related jobs. And in the petrochemical world and some of the other advanced industries, pharmaceutical, that can be 8 to 10 to 12 jobs for every job inside the plant. So, these are things that are absolutely key. And, the key points, I won't go down this list because we're running out of time, but I want to make sure that all the key points are, if you'll take this, I'd be glad to, hand this slide deck over to the EDC, and the key points are here. They're good talking points when you're talking to your local state representative or state senator or anybody interested, public opinion leaders, and what's the deal with Chapter 313. These are things to mention. And so I appreciate your time today. I hope this has been informative. We're here to answer your questions anytime. Just email us and we'll try to help out. Thanks so much. Good to be with you.
In October 2019, Adriana Cruz was appointed to lead the governor's Economic Development and Tourism Office. The office markets Texas as one of the world's premier business and travel destinations. As executive director, Adriana Cruz provides leadership to business and community development, economic development finance, Texas tourism, Texas Workforce Investment Council, Texas Music Office, and the Texas Film Commission. Thanks for joining us, Adriana.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining today. My name is Adriana Cruz, and I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Economic Development and Tourism Office in the Office of Governor Greg Abbott. And I'm so honored to be speaking with you today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the office, what it is that we do, how important manufacturing is to the state of Texas, and talk a little bit about the Texas economy. So with that, bear with me. I'm going to share my screen and give you this information. So the Texas Economic Development and Tourism Office, we're an office within the Office of Governor Abbott, and our job is to market and promote Texas as a premier business location and tourist destination. And we have a number of divisions that work in our office, and I'll talk to you about a few of them today. Business and Community Development, Economic Development Finance, the Texas Workforce Investment Council. This is the group that oversees the development of the Workforce Development Strategic Plan for the state. The Texas Music Office, the Travel Texas Division, and the Texas Film Commission. So you can see that the creative industries are important to our state's economy, as is tourism. So Business and Community Development is the group I'm going to talk to you about today. This is the group that really focuses on the creation of new jobs and investment through domestic and international business recruitment, expansion and retention of our existing businesses, increasing Texas exports, and small business and entrepreneurial development. We also have in this division our regional team, and I'll talk about them in a minute. Economic Development Finance is another one of our divisions that's very important. This is the group that oversees the state incentive programs, and we do provide competitive and cost-effective financial tools and incentives that are used to support and facilitate business expansion and relocation, and ensure that Texas communities and businesses have access to capital for economic development projects. Some of the programs in this division include the Texas Enterprise Fund, the Texas Enterprise Zone Program, our Events Trust Fund, and something important for our manufacturers, the Product Development and Small Business Incubator Fund. And these are low interest loans that manufacturers can apply for to help them expand or purchase new equipment. The regional offices that I mentioned, the state, we're divided into 5 separate regions, and we have folks located in each of these regions that really work with our local community partners and our Texas businesses. And for Central Texas, Kate Stanford is your regional representative, and they work really closely with local governments, stakeholders, and economic development organizations to really assist the community in their efforts. And some statistics about the state and sort of where we stand right now. Texas is known for our economic strength. One of the lowest tax burdens in the country, the nation's leader in terms of job growth, adding 286,000 jobs in 2019. If we were a country, we would be the 9th largest economy in the world based on GDP. And that's ahead of Australia, Mexico, South Korea, and Russia. We are the top exporter in the US for the 19th year in a row, the 2nd largest civilian workforce in the country, and ranked #1 in the nation for foreign trade zone activity, both imports and exports. Texas was named the nation's best state for business for 16 years in a row. We do receive numerous awards and accolades, and one of the most recent ones, just the first of this month, Site Selection Magazine ranked Texas, recognized Texas for the 9th year in a row for the Governor's Cup, which is an award that's given to the state that has the most economic development projects in that year. And so we're very, very proud of these awards and recognitions, and we know that it's not possible without the work of our local partners like the Seguin Economic Development Corporation. These are the target industry clusters that we are focused on, and you can see that manufacturing plays a significant role. Advanced manufacturing, including food, automotive, semiconductors, aerospace, aviation, and defense, biotechnology and life sciences, information technology, petroleum refining and chemical products, energy, both traditional oil and gas and renewable energy, and then corporate operations. And I want to talk a little bit about manufacturing. Made in Texas is a very powerful global brand, and we are so proud of the manufacturers that are in our state, and you can get a sense of the diverse products that are made in Texas, everything from wine and food manufacturing and vodka to high-tech electronics, vehicles, fighter jets, helicopters, electric vehicles, furniture, furnishings, boots. There's a lot that's made in Texas, and we're so proud of our area manufacturers. The Texas manufacturing output accounts for 10% of the US total. And because of that, the Lone Star State has led the nation in exports, as I said before, for 19 consecutive years with a value of $279 billion. We also rank #1 in the country for high-tech exports at almost $45 billion. We rank 2nd for the number of manufacturing firms, and our workforce is 917,000 strong. And Texas is where today's products are made and where tomorrow's technologies are brought to life. And as the previous slide showed, you know, some of the diversity of the goods that are made in Texas. A little bit about our COVID-19 response and the economic outlook. We know that last year was a challenging year for our state and for our country as we all worked through COVID-19 and the economic disruption that it caused. We do see that our civilian labor force is back up to 14 million after dropping in May. Texas continues to add new jobs in December, adding 62,000 jobs. As I said, our exports continue strong. The state sales tax revenue for November was down 5% compared to last year, but we've experienced 8 consecutive months of job growth, which we are thrilled about. The Texas unemployment rate, you can see in April and May, hit a high of 13.5%. We're down to 7.2% now, which is still higher than where we normally are. And you may have heard from some of the other speakers on Texas manufacturing and the manufacturing outlook, but we do see the production index went up in December. You can see that really precipitous fall in the March timeframe at the start of 2020. And a little bit to talk about just where we are in terms of our prospect activity. You have probably seen in the news a lot of companies announcing that they are moving to Texas, especially from California, but we're seeing them from all over the country. And Gone to Texas has become a very popular statement. We have about 244 active projects in our pipeline, and you can see that before the pandemic, we were averaging about 35 a quarter. We're now seeing an increase of about 68 active inquiries a quarter. And a good number of those are manufacturing. Now, we do separate out general manufacturing, food and agriculture, automotive, advanced technologies, and aerospace, aviation, and defense. But general manufacturing alone takes up a significant part of that pie chart. So we know that, manufacturers are still looking and evaluating the state as a potential location. And just in Guadalupe County, we've seen, the announcement of 62 new projects. Our research team looks statewide and looks at newspaper articles and information that we receive from our community partners. And in 2020, we had more than 800 new projects announced in Texas. And these aren't just newcomers coming into the state. These are our existing Texas businesses that have expanded their footprint, added more jobs. And so we're seeing a lot of that growth and success coming from our existing Texas businesses. The total investment announced in 2020 was almost $13 billion and 44,000 new jobs associated with these announcements, relocations, and expansions. And in Guadalupe County alone, we saw 62 new projects, about $675 million in capital investment, and almost 1,400 new jobs. So that's excellent work on behalf of the Seguin Economic Development Corporation. And, the 2020 announcements that we saw regarding manufacturing, some of these, as I said, are expansions like Goya, but some of them are new companies. Killdeer Mountain Manufacturing is a tier 1 aviation and aerospace supplier that located in Kerrville, Texas. And then, of course, Tesla was a huge announcement that we had locating in eastern Travis County. And that's the information that I have and the update that I wanted to give you on sort of our prospect activity. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with all of you, with Guadalupe County, with the Seguin Economic Development Corporation. Economic development is a team sport, and these successes are not due to the work or the actions of any one organization or certainly our office. We work closely together with your elected officials, with the economic development organizations, the chambers of commerce, and our existing Texas businesses to make sure that Texas continues to win these accolades and awards and continues to lead the nation in terms of economic activity. Thank you.
Aaron Demerson currently serves as the commissioner representing employers for the Texas Workforce Commission. Governor Greg Abbott appointed him to the 3-member commission on August 20th, 2019. In his role, Commissioner Demerson serves as an advocate for over 565,000 Texas employers and over 2.6 million small businesses. Prior to employment at the Texas Workforce Commission, he served as a senior advisor to Governor Rick Perry and executive director of the Economic Development and Tourism Division in the governor's office, leading a team that marketed the state of Texas as a premier destination for both business and travel. Thanks for joining us, Commissioner Demerson.
Good morning, and Lindsay, thanks so much for the introduction. I'm blessed to serve as the commissioner representing employers at the Texas Workforce Commission. Governor Abbott appointed me to this position in August of 2019, and last month, I was reappointed by Governor Abbott since I was filling the existing term of the now Secretary of State, Ruth Hughes. Of course, this is subject to Senate confirmation, so fingers crossed. Now, I've had the privilege of representing the interests of employers, the 587,000 Texas employers and 2.6 million small businesses across the state. My two other colleagues include the Commissioner representing Labor, Julian Alvarez, and the Chair and Commissioner representing the public, Brian Daniel. Now, our mission at TWC is to promote a workforce system that creates value and provides employers, individuals, and communities with an opportunity to achieve and sustain economic prosperity. And you get that economic prosperity by providing Texans with a job, by providing Texans with a career, by providing Texas with another day, another week of available work. The Workforce Solutions team, led by CEO Adrian Lopez, is the team in this region who makes it all happen. They're the boots on the ground for all things workforce. I urge you to reach out to them if you have any questions about accessing our resources at TWC. 28 local Workforce Solutions offices statewide who really make things happen. Now, Seguin, Texas, what a community, what amazing progress. You know, I've been privileged to watch this community grow. I've seen the economic development efforts, the workforce efforts, the education efforts. And as you already know, that's the secret sauce to part of our success here in Texas. When we bring the worlds of workforce, economic development, and education together, then you add in the involvement of elected leadership, and it's a win-win for all. If I had time, I'd share a funny story about Representative Kemple. Actually, stories about both the father and the son, but mine, look at the time. So no time to do just that. So I'd like to also recognize all the Texas employers, all the manufacturers on this call today, and thank you for all that you're doing in your respective communities. We don't take it for granted. We appreciate the investment that's being made in our state. I know Tony Bennett with the Texas Association of Manufacturers and that team, they're front and center in our office and are major stakeholders for us day in and day out. Tony's going to tell you, but manufacturers in Texas account for about 13% of the total output in our state, employing just over 7% of the workforce. A huge piece of our workforce puzzle, and we wouldn't be successful as a state without all of you. So thank you again for all that you're doing. Now, just yesterday, we began the 100% reopening of Texas, and we're doing it both safely and strategically. I know things are very, very busy. My office hosted a virtual webinar that had over 5,000 Texas employers on the session to discuss the 100% reopening, what employers should know. We're pleased to have Adriana Cruz from the Office of the Governor's Economic Development and Tourism team with us, provide remarks, and also 4 employment law attorneys answering questions from our Texas employers. It was a great conversation, and a number of employers on the call just goes to show their dedication and desire to just get it right. We have a recording of that webinar on our LinkedIn page, and I'll make sure to get it to Lindsay and the team, Josh, and all of you guys for distribution to your employers that may be interested. Now here at Workforce, you've heard a lot about what's been happening here, but to say that we've been busy is a gross understatement, as we've been extremely busy. Prior to the outbreak of COVID-19, the Texas economy was strong. 31 consecutive months of positive job growth, adding close to 43,000 jobs in February of 2020, while also enjoying historic low unemployment rates for much of 2019 and early 2020. And then late February, March, the increase in positive cases happened. That resulted in a historic number of unemployment insurance claims. We had phone calls coming in and inquiries and a number of layoffs in our state. But since the week of March 14, 2020, we've had more than 7 million claims that have been processed, 3 million individuals that have received benefits. Again, 7 million claims, 3 million individuals receiving benefits. Comparing that, in the entirety of 2019, we had 738,000 claims. So you're going from 738,000 claims to 7 million. We paid out over $42 billion in benefits, and that includes the federal $600 and $300 supplemental unemployment benefits that we received from the federal level as well. But to put this in better perspective, imagine this: TWC, we were doing about a year's worth of work in a 1-month time frame. What we would normally do in a year, we had to do in 1 month. while literally answering millions of telephone calls. But we took all hands on deck approach with this. We wanted to push forward a number of initiatives to ensure we were doing our best to provide legendary customer service. We hired more people to field phone calls. We added more telecenters. We went from 4 to 8 call centers, expanded our time as well. More traffic on the website presented for us more opportunities. We created a chat box to field virtual questions and extended our hours from Monday through Sunday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. All of this with the intent to ensure that no Texan would be left behind. For employers, we took a proactive approach and hosted over 60 virtual town hall meetings throughout the state. We did that with elected officials. We did that with Chamber of Commerce groups. We did that with industry association groups, all throughout to make sure that we were answering questions to any comments or questions that employers had in our state. We wanted to make sure that they had the best access to information. You know, employers were impacted in a number of ways. There were layoffs, loss of revenue, business closures, and the list goes on and on. However, something that really touched the heart is that they were concerned mostly with their employees. They were concerned at individuals that no longer would have the opportunity to come to work. And it was really the Texas way. But now we're beginning to see progress. You know, the posting of jobs. I was talking to the Seguin team, economic development team, the activity that's upticking in that area, business activities, and hopefully more positive employment numbers down the line. So check out our Work in Texas website, workintexas.com, for career matching website and details. Anybody that needs a job or looking for jobs in that area, Adrian Lopez and his team, the Workforce Solutions Office, are key individuals to make sure that we're putting our Texans back to work. And if you're an employer, please remember to post your open positions there as well. I want to briefly mention an important resource in our office. We have an employer hotline dedicated strictly for the business owners here in Texas. If you have an employment law question, there's a staff of 4 individuals. They're willing and ready to help you. They rarely come across a question they can't answer. Our number is 1-800-832-9394. Again, 1-800-832-9394. And we want to make sure that you have that number, you have access to that information, and don't hesitate to reach out to us. Let me do this in closing. You know, in Texas, folks like to call this bragging. However, you know, we know in Texas, it ain't bragging if it's true. You know, the fact of the matter is for 16 years in a row, Texas has been voted by CEOs across the nation as the best state to do business. And for the record-shattering 9th year in a row, recently just received, 9th year in a row, Texas was awarded the Site Selection Governor's Cup for job performance and capital investment. The Seguin Economic Development team has a lot to do with that. We appreciate the work that you guys are doing. And we even continue to recruit companies today, new companies like Tesla that's moving here, Hewlett-Packard Enterprises in the Houston area, Oracle. And I know the economic development team in Seguin is busy, and busy is probably an understatement. They're very busy. And that list will continue to grow in 2021. You know, Governor Abbott has issued priorities for the legislative session, and the interest of Texas employers remains at the top of his list. Now, I want you to know our office is here, as always, to help. As I close out, I know times are tough, and times may be tough, pero so are Texans. And so I want to thank you once again for all that you're doing. I wish we were there in person. We will get there in person. I want to thank you for your time, your attention, and for all you do to make a difference in our state. I started out by saying we don't take it for granted, and we don't. We appreciate the investment that you guys are making day in and day out in our state. And if we can be of any assistance, of any help, we want to make sure that we're in a position to do that. So let's go forward. Let's continue to make progress. And again, thank you for all that you're doing.
All right, so big thank you to all of our panelists that were able to join us and do those pre-recorded videos. Senator Zaffarini, Representative Kemple, Tony Bennett with the Texas Association of Manufacturers, Adriana Cruz with the Office of the Governor, and of course, Aaron Dimerson with Texas Workforce Commission. So now we're going to open it up to some Q&A, everybody. So if you have any questions, that you'd like to pose, please enter those into the chat box or the Q&A box that we have here as a part of the webinar format. We do have Senator Zaffirini and her staff on the call with us, along with Erin Dimerson from Texas Workforce Commission. So we'll see if any questions come into the chat box, but we do have some that we've prepared in advance. Mr. Dimerson, I'll start with you. Appreciate you taking the time to join us for this Q&A session. Hope you're doing well up in Austin right now. How's everything going for you?
We're doing pretty fantastic. It's Wednesday, so we're making progress. I think we started out early this morning at 8 o'clock with Representative Chair Angie Chin Button and her committee doing work in that regard. But it's all towards training, all towards opportunities here in Texas. So we're doing pretty fantastic. Thank you for asking. Perfect.
Well, I just wanted to, my first question for you is there any specific workforce related legislation that you're actively tracking that you think will either positively or negatively impact employers here in the state of Texas?
Yeah, we're tracking a little bit of everything. I think Tony kind of mentioned things, Chapter 313 is always of interest. The governor's office, Adriana mentioned a few projects there. The enterprise fund is always important. More importantly, here at the Workforce Commission, our Skills Development Fund program, again, that they alluded to, is a program of interest. The legislative body has appropriated funds to that for over 25 years. And so it's a real nice program that manufacturers use here in our state, customized training opportunities, and we want to make sure that we continue to keep the pedal to the metal and make sure that we're making a difference with our Texas employers. So that's one program in particular. There's not any legislation behind it, it's appropriations that's tied to that. And of course, a number of other issues that are out there as we deal with the pandemic, but that's one of major interest to us here at the Workforce Commission.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'd like to, just reiterate the importance of the Skills Development Fund. I know that we're working with a couple of employers here in Seguin right now on some Skills Development Fund applications, but with workforce and talent development really being a top priority, not only to help retain and expand our businesses here in the community, but also to help recruit businesses into Seguin and across the state of Texas. We have to ensure that we're allocating that funding to supporting and strengthening that talent pipeline. So, we're hoping that the Skills Development Fund still can remain strong and a vital component of our economic development efforts.
Thank you.
Lindsay, I'll turn over to you. I think you have a question as well.
Awesome, thank you. And this question is actually, good morning, Senator. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. This question is actually for you. I know you mentioned in your pre-recorded about a plan to get our workforce back to work safely, and I know that's a priority for you guys during session. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Well, basically what we're doing is ensuring that every aspect of workforce development is tied into education. And we want to ensure that we have not only the best possible jobs available, but also the best possible workforce. And that is why we work so closely, not only with the governor and the agencies, but with our colleagues in the legislature and with higher education officials to ensure that we have a plan that is coordinated, that is complete, that is realistic, and we hope that is well funded. We are so glad that the new Commissioner of Higher Education is particularly sensitive to the ability of community colleges to develop an appropriate workforce. So Commissioner Harrison Keller is very interested in the subject, and we are ensuring that we collaborate with him every step of the way.
Great. You've actually answered a couple of my questions in that. So that was perfect. Josh, I'll hand it back over to you.
Sure. And Senator Zaffirini, I appreciate you joining us here today for the Q&A as well and taking the time for that pre-recorded video. Really appreciate all your support for the community here.
Josh, though, and be warned, my grandsons might walk in at any minute.
Oh, not a problem. I mean, the more the merrier. I mean, this is all meant to be fun and casual here. But I wanted to go back, Senator Zaffirini, regarding the issues with the power grid that we experienced during the winter storm. Many of our companies here were they were down with the rolling blackouts impacting them, and that's something that we're kind of keeping an eye on as economic development professionals and how that might impact our recruitment efforts as we move forward. But I was hoping you could expand a little bit on your efforts and what your hopes and plans are to really have some reform on with ERCOT and really our electric reliability when it comes to natural disasters like we experienced in February.
Well, the disaster was natural itself, but what followed was not natural. It was a man-made disaster that followed. And it was a matter of poor preparation, poor planning, poor decision-making. And so the legislature is taking this very, very seriously. And this priority is being addressed by members of both parties, by every official. And in the Senate, we have already taken action to ensure that the error that was made regarding pricing will be corrected. Now, that hasn't been taken up by the House of Representatives at this point, but I assure you that in the end, the Senate and the House will work together. What we need is to ensure that we have true reform. And the only way that we can do that is to first and foremost analyze every aspect of what happened. Everything should be on the table. No one person, no one office, no one program should be excluded. We need to understand thoroughly exactly what happened and then what we can do about it. For example, there was a great disconnect between the directives of ERCOT and the providers, the energy providers. ERCOT, for example, directed the local providers of energy to have brownouts. And as you know, a brownout is a rolling outage. But that's not what happened in many parts of the state, including in my hometown. They had outages, they had blackouts, not brownouts. And so while the directive was to have rolling brownouts through neighborhoods and with no one being out of electricity for more than 15 minutes, we had outages that lasted for days. It was incredible. But the directive came so suddenly with not enough time for the providers to prepare for those brownouts. And they didn't have the energy that they needed to do that because at the same time that they got those directives, they had a directive to shed load. So how do you shed load and then arrange brownouts? That requires greater energy, not less. And so it was just a conglomeration of misunderstanding and miscommunication and lack of understanding of what the situation itself was. I think that everything should be on the table, including we should look at whether we should have that third grid, that ERCOT, instead of joining the national grid. In the United States, we have the Eastern, the Western, and Texas is alone. And that is why the parts of Texas that belong to another grid, for example, El Paso or the northernmost tip of the Panhandle, didn't have the problems that we had elsewhere because they weren't part of ERCOT. We've had a number of resignations, and they certainly were appropriate. If they hadn't resigned, they would have been fired, in most cases at least. So what we need to do at this point in time is communicate and not be as emotional as we all felt initially, but to be logical, responsible, and ethical, and honest and fair in our assessment of what happened and try to do something about it so that going forward, this will never happen again. We should not have had to suffer the way that we did in spite of how bad that storm was and in spite of the fact that it impacted all 254 counties. And see, that has never happened before. The problem was that Texas, first and foremost, is prepared to deal with heat issues, not with issues related to such cold weather. And second, we can't remember a time that all 254 counties were impacted. So before you could shift energy loads from one part of the state to another, in this case, all of the counties were impacted. So we didn't have a place to shift because we have our own grid and we are not tied into the east or to the west. I hope that answers your question.
Perfect. Yes, ma'am, it did. Thank you so much. I grew up in Canada, and I never thought I'd see 2 snow events in 1 week, and reminded me why I still live here in Texas. At least, well, not during that time, but during every other month out of the year, it seemed that the weather here is much nicer. But Lindsay, I'll turn it over to you for a final question with Mr. Dimerson.
Okay, great. Commissioner Dimerson, as you very well know, Texas has a history of being extremely competitive in the workforce area. And most recently, there's been a huge push to grow that pipeline. Do you see TWC continuing to add any additional programs or flexibility, perhaps, for tools for employers to train their workforce? I know there's been some kind of changes to some of the programs, but do you see anything new being added?
Yeah, we're delighted to see changes as we evolve here in Texas. Let me do this first of all. Let me thank Senator Zaffarini for her work. I want to recognize her. I've been in economic development and workforce for a long time, and Senator, thank you for everything you've done. I was in the governor's office, the economic development efforts that this state has experienced. When we talk about 9 years in a row, having a governor's cup, having the best business climate for 16 years in a row, that's the respect that we have at the legislative body. We don't have to wake up wondering about our business climate in Texas because we know leadership like Senator Zaffarini is taking place and it allows Texas to move along. So I want to recognize Senator Zaffarini. You tied together something that I quite often talk about, and that's workforce economic development in education. That's our secret sauce. When you bring together the worlds of workforce economic development in education, that's what really makes it work. And our relationship with Dr. Solis down there at Laredo College is pretty phenomenal. We're watching things happen in some big ways. And so I wanted to say that before we got off this call, that I really, truly appreciate all that you've done, Senator. In that
Thank
regard.
you so much, and we appreciate you.
Good, thank you. So, so Lindsay, we are looking at changes. This pandemic has allowed us to be very flexible with our programs. We're reacting to what's happening now. The legislative body that's here, if there are any tweaks to any program that we need legislatively, they're going to take care of that in a big way, and that'll be for the benefit of our Texans from that standpoint. We're going to continue to make sure we're recruiting. You had Adriana on the call. She's done a great job over there in the governor's office, heading that team, and we're in a position to move forward. Julian Alvarez is our commissioner representing labor. Chair is Brian Daniels. But the work that he's been doing statewide, but in particular in areas, has been pretty phenomenal. So we are looking at being flexible, looking at the changes that are coming, because they're all positive changes from that standpoint. And thank you guys for allowing us the opportunity to participate on this program.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner.
All right. If doesn't look like we had any questions from those participating, but we can wrap it up. Senator Zaffarini, do you have any closing remarks you'd like to give before we
Thank
end
you.
today?
Simply to thank you for this opportunity to interact with you. I had visited Seguin several times between the last session and the pandemic and was scheduled to return when, of course, we started working remotely. My staff and I are continuing to work remotely because we don't want to put anyone at risk in the slightest way possible. You see me at my office, at my home, which is really an apartment at my son's home in Austin. And we're working remotely, but going to the Capitol, of course, for session, for hearings. But as far as office appointments go, we continue to work remotely. So if anyone would like to meet with us, we are very accessible by Zoom and are happy to schedule Zoom meetings with you and with constituents. What is important for your city and for your county is redistricting. And I mentioned that in my opening remarks. Now, you and I know that I'm a Democrat and your county and your city are Republican. And that is why I made the statement that I did. I know that Senator Campbell and I are great friends, that we work so well together, and we share the responsibility and the opportunity and the wonderful way that we work together to make a difference for your city and your county. But your leaders need to discuss where you want to be. And if you would like the status quo, being divided into 2 districts, that's fine with me. If you prefer to be in my district, that's also fine. And if you prefer hers, I won't take it personally. Because I know that many people believe, oh, we're Republicans, we should be in a Republican senator's district. I will not take it personally. I do ask that if that's your preference, you let me know. I talked to the county judge about it. I said, just please don't go pass a resolution saying you don't want to be in my district. Just tell me. I'll support your effort. Let's not go insult me publicly, because we do our best. And we may be members of different parties in general, but we do our best and we collaborate and we work together and we get so much done. What we do in the legislature is really not partisan, with few exceptions, such as redistricting. 90% of the bills we passed last session had bipartisan support. We work together because while we differ politically and philosophically, each senator is there to do what he or she thinks is best for his or her district. We all care about Texas deeply. And we may disagree about issues, but we like each other, we work together, and we do our best. And that's just really a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for inviting me today. I'm delighted to be with you.
Thank you, Senator Zaffirini. Well said. Commissioner Dimerson, any closing remarks on your end?
I think you closed out properly. You allowed the senator to close out, and I think we're good to go. So,
Perfect. Sounds good. Well, I'd really quick just like to thank my team, Lindsay, Ashlyn, and Brittany Watson for help getting this organized and putting it on. Thought everything went great, and we'll hopefully be providing more updates as the legislative session continues to move on, and we'll be sure to share that with our manufacturing community here in Seguin. And we're hopeful that we can have both you, Senator Zaffirini, and you, Commissioner Dimerson, back in the community here soon. We've had a lot of really positive things happening here in Seguin, and want to be sure to make sure that y'all are a part of the growth that we're experiencing here as well. And we just really appreciate your support and your willingness to participate in this event today. So thank you both so much.
Josh, if I may add, I know that Representative Kemple and Senator Campbell would have been here if they could have.
Yes.
But we have hearings. I just was fortunate today that I didn't have a hearing scheduled at this time. Yesterday I had 2 plus session, but today I don't go until 12:45. So this was perfect timing.
Well,
but I'm sure that they had conflicts, but they do such a wonderful job. Both are great leaders, both are respected, and both work hard. So on their behalf, I thank you for their opportunity to work with you too.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator Zaffirini. And yes, thank you to Representative Kemple, Senator Campbell, Adriana Cruz with the governor's office, and Tony Bennett with the Texas Association of Manufacturers for also participating. It's busy up in Austin this time of year, so we know it's hard to coordinate everybody's schedules, but we really appreciate the support and your support of Seguin and Guadalupe County. So thank you, everybody, and we'll provide further updates as we move further along in the legislative session. Have a great day.